Hey, heathens, you're listening to the Deadly Faith Podcast, where religion and crime collide. I'm Laci.
And I'm Lola.
And this shit is devastating.
The mind that was in Jesus, that mind is in me.
Without me, life has no meaning.
Why would God tell you what I'm thinking and tell you what I've said to my wife or my husband when you're not around? It's because I'm the pastor of the church and I need to know.
This is the only place where you can see truth.
Laci told me before we started this, she texted me earlier, was like, just heads up, you and I are both going to cry. And I was like, next time, don't give me a warning.
So I read a book
Just
for
raw
this.
dog it.
So I will raw dog the hell out of it. So the case, I read a book for it. And I cried at this part when I read the book. When I went over and organized my notes, again, I cried. Today I did a once over again on my notes. And
Again, you cried.
I didn't cry, but I teared up today.
You started, yeah.
And I was like, God damn it, son of a bitch. So it's pretty emotional. It's it's just horrific. It's devastating. It's just a bad one all the way around. I'm trying to find the book really quick to share with you guys. So today we are talking about the case of Susan Powell. Some of you probably know it. It's a pretty popular case that's talked about a lot. It is technically, I'm saying technically, unsolved, but we know who did it. It's one of those it's unsolved, but it's closed. So
I gotcha.
Even the police were like, we know.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's called If I Can't Have You by Greg Olson. And it's very detailed on this entire case of the Susan Powell. Yes. And before I jump into the show, I have a little shout out. So local to me, there is a little, I guess a nonprofit that I'd like to shout out. It's called Tiny Miracles Kitten Rescue. And one of our listeners is one of the foster parents for some of these little kitties. And so I was like, I'd love to shout them out on our show. So Tiny Miracles Kitten Rescue is doing incredible work for some of the most tiniest and most vulnerable felines that we have here in the Tri-Cities area of Tennessee. They are based out of Johnson City, Tennessee, and this 501c3 nonprofit specializes in rescuing and caring for orphaned kittens 6 weeks and under. Okay, so what makes them really special is they are 100% foster-based. So every kitten is raised in a very loving foster care home before they are adopted out. It is also 100% donation funded. They rely entirely on our community and support from them to save the lives of these little kittens. It's also 100% volunteer operated, and so it's passionate people who are fostering these kittens and getting them adopted out. They've even done some interviewing lately for a social media person and things like that. Of course, all unpaid. It's all volunteer based. So if you want to help them out, please donate or foster if you are in the local area, or just spread the word to help them out. Every little bit makes a tiny miracle happen for these guys. And it's really important for these little baby cats to be rescued. They were explaining to me that having them in a foster home versus having them at a shelter is a lot more beneficial, because there's a very common virus that unvaccinated cats can get, and it's livable, but they need special care in that neonatal time to really help them get through these viruses, or a virus that they get. And so having that one-on-one care in the foster homes is just really important for these little guys. So again, the links are all in the show notes if you want to check it out, donate, or share it with especially if you're local. I know they would just be really happy to see the support and love from everybody. So thanks again. That's called Tiny Miracles Kitten Rescue, and they're located in the Tri-Cities, specifically in Johnson City, Tennessee. Now, let's get into the horrific case.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. I know. I gave you a little sunshine, and now I'm going to bring you down to the depths of hell.
Okay. I've been here before, but never like this.
Right. Trigger warnings for today's case: murder, toxic relationships, disappearance, sexual abuse, voyeurism, creepy father-in-law, murder, kind of graphic, just so you're aware, and suicide. So,
what you got to say, voyeurism?
It gets worse. And just hold on to your diapers, babies, because this is going to get bad. So let's just go, because this is a longer case. So
all right, let's go.
I am going to just jump right in here. Okay, so on the morning of Monday, December 7th, Debbie, who's a daycare owner, started to become very worried about two of the children she regularly watches. So Charlie, age 4, and Braden, age 3, were normally dropped off around 6 a.m., but now it was 9, and the boys had still not arrived. So the mom, Susan Powell, she was the type with these kids who was very punctual. She had these kids dropped off on time. Now the dad, Josh, he was another story. He could be a little bit wishy-washy, but if he was bringing them late, he was usually there by this point. So she's starting to get worried. She starts calling Susan and to see if everything's okay, but she has no luck. Over time, she began to grow increasingly worried, so she decided to drive over to Susan's house and see if she was there. Now, unfortunately, the town had just experienced a very heavy snowfall the night before, and many locals said that the streets were just complete mayhem. So due to this extreme weather, Debbie had become worried that maybe Susan and the family had gotten snowed in and needed some help, or there was something else going on due to the weather. So she was worried. So she gets to the house and she knocks several times, but there's no answer. She continues to call Susan's cell phone along with her work and home phone, but again, no answers. She then calls Josh's work, but they said he never showed up that day. With this knowledge, Debbie then starts to grow even more worried, and she calls Jennifer Graves, who is Josh's sister. She also hadn't heard from the family, and she becomes worried herself. So her and her mom, Terry, which is Josh's mom, goes over to the Powell home to check things out. After, again, not getting any answers at the door or on their phones, they called the police and reported the family is missing. Now, police come to do a welfare check, and they notice that the snow had no prints in it besides those of Debbie's. So no footprints of like Josh or any of the family members leading away from the home. So at this point, they're like, oh no, are they like all passed out or dead from like carbon monoxide poisoning inside?
Yeah, stuck inside.
Yeah, so
Oh my
they're
God.
a little worried. So after they don't get any, answers, Jennifer gives them permission to break a window and gain entry into the home. So the police get in, and immediately they notice that a stereo was blasting music, which was weird. They had 2 box fans on, and they were angled towards a damp spot on the carpet in the living room. Another red flag. And no one was in the home. Not a single person.
Does it smell like bleach, possibly?
Yeah, that I did not, they never said whether it smelled like cleaner or not. So,
Okay.
after looking around some more, they found Susan's purse was in her bedroom along with her keys and her wallet. The only item of hers that wasn't at the house was her phone. They said the house was a little bit messy, but nothing out of the ordinary, and it was clear there were no signs of any kind of like robbery. They also noted that Susan's snow boots were by the front door, but Josh's and the boys were not. And Susan was known to wear these every single day, especially with like the kind of extreme weather they were having. Like you wore your snow boots. Now, police were immediately suspicious, so they issued a statewide attempt to locate bulletin on the family and their 2005 light blue Town and Country minivan. Jennifer, Josh's sister, was growing even more worried as time went on, especially after seeing the home, so she started to make some phone calls. She called Chuck, Susan's father, Steve, Josh's father, and some of the neighbors who lived nearby. One by one, they told them they had not seen the family and didn't know where they were. Chuck, Susan's father, said that in the beginning, he really wasn't worried because he knew that Josh was a very impulsive type person. So he's like, maybe they're just out.
He would just take off and travel, maybe?
You would just go do something random. He's just like very impulsive. So he's like, I wasn't worried at this point.
Sure.
Now, after asking around, they were able to put together a tentative timeline of the family's moves the prior day on Sunday. So the family had woken up and gone to the church at the Mormon temple. They were Mormon. And then later that afternoon, a woman named Giovanni had come over to help Susan with some crocheting. Now, she ended up having dinner with the family, and she said when she left, Susan had gone to take a nap, and Josh was taking the boys out to the park to go sledding. Now, this is the last time that anybody had any confirmed contact with the family. Now, on Monday, around 3 p.m., when Giovanni heard that the family had been missing, she called Josh, but he didn't answer. She then had her son try to call him from his phone, and shockingly, Josh answered. Now, Giovanni asked where he was, and told him that the police were looking for him. And Josh was silent on the other end of the call and then said, "We're driving around." And then Giovanni asks where Susan was. And Josh tried to say that Susan was at work and that he and the boys had gone camping without Susan the night before. Now, she quickly told Josh that Susan was not at work and was worried that he himself didn't go to work. Josh tried to say that he had gotten confused on what day it was, and he thought it was actually Sunday, not Monday. Okay, but why would you automatically say Susan's at work if you think it's Sunday, not Monday? So like, okay.
You been where? With who?
Giovanni noted that she knew right away Josh was lying. Red flags are flying for her. Now, after looking at cell phone records later on, so this happens later on, I'm going to kind of like jump back and forth in the timeline, and I'll say like later on in the investigation we find out. But it's just kind of easier to go through it piece by piece instead of having to like unravel it how the investigators found it out. Because that's just going to be a whole lot of jumping back and forth, and I don't want to do that. So later on in the investigation, phone records reveal that 2 minutes after his phone call with Giovanni, Josh called Susan's phone and left a voicemail. Josh then drove around West Valley, Utah for 2 hours, stalling, even though he knew the police were looking for him and his family. He knew this, but just drove around. Yeah. He also took his minivan to a DIY car wash and washed it. Huh?
Aren't you concerned where your wife is?
You would think.
Since she's
You would
not at
hope.
work and not with you?
Well, at 5:37 that day, Jennifer, his sister, called him, but he didn't answer. Right after that, he called Susan's phone again and left another voicemail. At 5:40, just a few minutes later, he called her phone again and left another voicemail saying that he was in the Wells Fargo parking lot and asked if she needed a ride home from work.
What?
Yeah. So at 5:48, he called Jennifer, his sister, who was on the phone with Chuck, Susan's father. Now, I don't know how they did this, but they end up looping Chuck into the phone call, and she just tells Chuck to stay quiet and just listen. So she asks Josh on this phone call where he was, and he said that he was at work. Motherfucker. She quickly told him he was lying and asked where the boys were and if they were safe and where in the hell was Susan. Josh tried to say that Susan was at work. She told Josh right away, "We know that's not true." She then asked, "How much do you know?" Josh quickly replied with, "Why would you ask that?" Jennifer then asked, "What did you do to her?" After that, Josh immediately just hung up. Now, Chuck.
If that's not a silent confession, I don't know what is.
I mean, there are so many like silent confessions in this story, like a multitude, okay? Now, Chuck, Susan's father, goes into investigative mode, and he tells Jennifer, "Write down everything you heard on the phone call. I'll do the same, and we'll just keep record of everything." Now, the reason Chuck was very familiar with investigative processes and why it was so easy for him to go into investigative mode is he was an investigator himself with the FFA. He investigated aviation wrecks and had seen many horrific aircraft crashes. So he'd done this for years. So Chuck does say that it was at this point that he became extremely suspicious of Josh. Now, Jennifer quickly went to the police and told them about the suspicious call she just had with Josh. The police then call Josh from Jennifer's home and tell him that he needs to come home right now. Josh says that he's going to go get the boys something to eat real quick and then he'll be home. He did not get home until around 6:40 p.m. Mind you, the cops had been looking for him since like at least noon.
Oh my.
Yeah. When Josh pulled into the driveway, the police didn't let him exit his car before they launched into questioning him. Josh said that they had left just after midnight the night before to go camping, and Susan was asleep in her bed when they left. He claimed that he didn't know where she was. When they asked him why he wasn't answering his phone, he claimed that he kept it off to preserve the battery and claimed that they didn't have service anyways because they were out in the desert camping.
Of course.
Now, I just want you to remember the weather that I had said they had just had that night. Keep that in mind. Because it's like,
oh, yeah.
What? Now, Josh is being questioned by Maxwell in the driveway, the detective. And the detective leans into the window of the car, and he saw that there was a phone in the console plugged in to a charger. But in the passenger seat was another cell phone. Why is there 2 cell phones in this car? You're only
You got a
one
burner
adult.
phone, or is that your wife's?
Later on, they find out that that second phone was in fact Susan's. And Josh tried to say that he had accidentally taken it with him when he used her phone to like look something up.
Sure.
But remember when we found out that the records show that he had made frequent calls to her phone and left her voicemails? Why would he do that if he knew he had her phone?
Yeah. Yeah. That's...
Now, I know I'm giving you a lot of evidence, and the reason that I'm going to continually give you this evidence and this circumstantial evidence is I'm building it up because I want you to realize how much circumstantial evidence, like it's not a smoking gun, but there is so much circumstantial evidence in this case.
Mhm.
And I feel like they
You'd
dropped
think
the
it
ball.
would be enough.
Yeah, it should have been in many cases. Now, after that, the officers made Josh go down to the station for a formal interview right away. Like, do not even get out of your car. Just go straight over to the police station. When they started questioning him, Josh said he couldn't remember what Susan was even wearing and said that she had just gone to lay down because she was tired. And she woke up a little bit later. They ate some hot dogs, watched one of the Santa Claus movies. And in one of his stories, he said that he took Braden to go sledding. But then in another one, he said that he took both the boys to go sledding. So it's like, you can't even keep that straight. Now, he then claims that when he got home, Susan was watching TV, so he just started cleaning with his new rug doctor. He got a new toy and he was just testing it out. That's why that spot on the carpet was damp.
When is a rug doctor a toy for a... I'm sorry.
I know.
This... Okay.
Amen. Amen, sister. You don't even have to say it. I already know what you're thinking. Agreed.
I don't want to be that person to be like, a man cannot enjoy a rug doctor. But, like, I just don't feel like that's the go-to for...
Oh,
when
you
boys get
girl, you
toys.
hitting the nail on the head because you are going to see the more we go into this that boy would have never cleaned up
Oh, okay.
his own shit when he had a case of diarrhea. So, I'm gonna call some major bullshit on that
Heard.
one. Okay. I just pulled that out of my ass. He never did that, but like I'm just saying he was that bad of a
Sure, yeah.
husband. So now, so after he gets done playing with his rug doctor, that sounded really weird. Anyways, moving on. Then he had the random bright idea to go camping, but Susan didn't want to go. She was like, "Oh hell no!" So he just packed up and he left right after
The
midnight.
weather... Sorry.
Yeah. He claimed that they ended up sleeping in the car and used his new electric generator to stay warm.
That's... Okay.
At about 9 p.m., Josh and the boys left the police station and went home. Neighbors said that they noticed that he backed his minivan up right up to the garage and spent the next multitude of hours going back and forth from his house to his minivan, cleaning it and unloading stuff and then bringing cleaners out and cleaning. And it was an hours-long ordeal of cleaning this minivan.
How much cleaning do you have to do pre-camping?
Yeah. And this was after camping. This was after he left the police station.
Oh.
Yeah.
Worse.
Even worse. Exactly.
Where's your wife? Anyway.
Yep. At the police station, the police did confiscate Josh and Susan's phones prior to him leaving from the minivan. And they put them into evidence, but they quickly found out that both of them were missing their SIM cards.
Knew it.
But all this meant that it was just going to take a little bit more time to get the phone records from the phone companies. Not like it's impossible to
True.
get. It's just going to take a
Yeah.
little bit longer. Yeah. Now, in this version of the story, many of Susan's friends and family immediately said that there was no way in fucking hell that Susan would allow for a winter camping trip with her boys. No way in hell. For one, it was not long before this they had tried a fall camping trip, but Braden and Charlie just cried the whole damn time, begged to go home until they finally cut the trip short and went home. And I 100% understand
You
that.
concur. Yeah.
Last time we went camping, my older two did great. My 5-year-old, she was not 5 at the time. She was about 3. And oh no, I don't even think she was 3 because it was in Oregon. So it was like 2.5. It was the most miserable trip I've ever had in my life. And we did cut it a day short because I was like, I fucking done. I want my bed and I want her to stop crying.
Yeah.
It was miserable. So
That makes sense.
yeah. So there's no way she would have agreed to this. Like, absolutely no way at all. Now, as information about this case is starting to come forward, people were kind of shocked to find that Chuck, Susan's father, was actually supportive of Josh. They were like everybody's like, okay, there's like a foot of snow, 2 feet of snow on the ground. You're taking your boys camping. Like, everybody in the world is like green, like red flag, red flag, red flag, all the way around with this case. And I remember when this case happened, and it was shortly after Tyler and I had gotten married. So I had followed this from day one, basically.
Did you also think that, like, immediately?
I was like, he did it.
Yeah.
They're like 1,000% he did it. So everyone's shocked. Chuck's backing Josh. And they're like, what's going on? But what the public didn't know was that Chuck was putting on an act. He knew.
Oh, he's so good. He's so good.
I love Chuck. I'm going to give him a damn hug, man. He knew that if he came out accusing Josh of anything, that it would just cut off any kind of communication he had with Josh in order to find Susan or figure out what happened to her. And it would cut off his ties to his grandsons. So, to the public, he made statements that Josh was a super father and that the kids were safe in his care. Behind closed doors, the man's shitting bricks. And
he was working.
He was working the system, basically. Now, the police asked Josh to come in for a second interview and even had it scheduled with a specific appointment time. But Josh continued to stall and stall and stall. It wasn't until his sister and his mother pushed him over and over again until he finally went in, arriving 4 hours late for his appointment for his second interview. While he was being interviewed, other officers arrived at his home with search warrants. They ended up taking boxes of stuff, including computers, a section of the carpet from where the box fans were pointed, dirty rags found inside the bathtub, and even Susan's favorite rocking chair and love seat. As they searched the home, they did discover some drops of blood on the tile near the front door that later turned out to be Susan's. Back at the police station, Josh seemed more concerned about the broken window that the police had done on his house to gain entry.
Wow.
Then about
Where
the fact
is his sense of urgency when it comes to...
He had none. Literally none. And the police clocked that. They were like, you're worried about a fucking window? Your wife's missing, you dipshit.
This is just like the Chris Watts case.
Mm-hmm. Now, police did note that Josh's hands were extremely chapped, red, and even had cuts on them. They photographed them, but Josh said that they were that way just because of the weather. But to the cops, it seemed like he would have had to have been out in the elements for some time for his hands to get as bad as what they were seeing. Come to find out, Josh had not talked to his employer. He hadn't even told his boys that their mom was missing, and he hadn't even called their friends to ask if they knew where Susan was. So at this point, he's been back in town for almost 24 hours.
Yeah.
Hasn't called his boss, hasn't told his boys their mom's missing, and hasn't even called his neighbors or their friends to be like, I can't find Susan. Do you know where she's at?
Mm-hmm.
What? When the cops asked him about that, he was like, I haven't had time.
What? You're so busy. I know. What a packed schedule you must have between your lies and deception.
It's like that scene from The Grinch when he's like going through his schedule. He's like, such and such, 1 o'clock. I don't have time. That's what makes me think of.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't have time. I haven't thought about it. I don't have time. Now, also, police noticed the inconsistencies among Josh's story. For one, he claimed that he thought it was Sunday, not Monday, but then also had told Giovanni that Susan was at work. So if he thought it was Sunday, then why was he saying that Susan was at work? Because she doesn't work Sunday. She works at a bank. All banks are closed. You little shit. Yeah. And the police asked him about the wet spot on the carpet, right? And Josh just said, like I said earlier, I just got a reg doctor. I'm fun with my new toy.
I love your impression of him.
He's a piece of shit. Like, that doesn't even begin to describe him.
Got a rug doctor.
I got a rub doctor. I think that's what he sounds like too. Well, so while Josh is also being interviewed, Charlie, age 4, was being interviewed at the West Valley Justice Center. When he was asked about the camping trip, he said that he went with his mom, his dad, and his brother, and claimed that they had s'mores. Now, it is important to note that he said that they had went on an airplane and that it took them to the Dinosaur National Park. So remember, we're interviewing a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
So it's, but it's still like he said he went with his mom. So when they asked him more about his mom and where she was, he said that he hadn't talked to her, but that she was at work. When they asked him more about the camping trip, he said that he came back with his dad and his brother, but that his mom stayed at the Dinosaur National Park. They asked where at the park did his mom stay, and he said that it was at the Crystals.
At the Crystals.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
Cave?
I will say right now, we still don't know where Susan's at to this day. So, it's pretty much sucks. But that's like the closest we can get is like somewhere out in the woods where the crystals are. And they've done extensive searches in many different areas and still have been unable to find her body. Yeah. Who is Susan, though? Well,
yeah,
let's talk about her. Susan was the 3rd youngest of 4 girls in the Cox family in Washington State. Her parents were Chuck and Judy Cox. Growing up, she had a very typical family life full of love and laughter and a multitude of great memories. When Susan was a teen, she began writing romantic fantasies and said that writing...
I'm okay.
She said that writing these fantasies really helped her just kind of like process through things. Like she just liked writing. Mm-hmm. Now, Susan was said to be a dreamer and saw good in everyone. Now that I think everyone would agree that was her best and worst quality, that she saw the good in everyone. And she saw the good in everything around her. Her and her siblings loved birds, and they also sang in the choir at their church. When she was a teen, her and her sister Denise dreamed of opening a business together. Not that this is the cutest thing ever. They wanted to open a salon and a dog grooming business all in one. So, like, I
love this.
You get to come and get yourself all pretty. Your dog gets to get groomed.
And bring your pup.
And they were going to call it Beauty and Your Beast.
That is so okay.
I mean, the marketing.
Yes.
Sells itself.
That's amazing. I love that idea. If I could work with grooming animals,
you're right.
I would hop on that now.
Right. But you just got to find somebody else because you're already the cosmetologist. So you find somebody else to do the grooming. See?
That's true.
Yeah. I can't groom. I'm sorry. You'll have to find somebody else. I can't do it. Cannot do it. But Susan loved making people feel pretty. Like that was her, like she loved it. You get it. You're a cosmetologist.
It's one of the greatest honors.
Mm-hmm. She ended up actually going and getting her cosmetology license and started doing her dream job. Now, like I said earlier, her father, Chuck, he worked for the FFA as a flight investigator when there was crashes and things like that, and he did that for multiple years. Now, Josh, her husband. He was born to Steve and Terry Powell, but unfortunately, he did not have the good, bright and shiny, loving, family life that Susan had. His family, there was a lot of bitterness as their marriage went on. Steve started to grow away from the Mormon faith, and that caused a lot of division within their home. And the couple did end up divorcing when Steve was younger, or not Steve, Josh, when Josh was younger. And it was not amicable, and it was very, bitter and full of a lot of fights. And it was
harmful.
It was not good. Yeah. After Josh graduated high school, he didn't go on the typical Mormon mission that most Mormon boys go on. Mm-hmm. He decided to stay living with his father. And many noted that Josh was the type of person that was very apt to be influenced by his father's rants about the Mormon church and all of his other chaotic beliefs and opinions.
Okay.
Now the two, Susan and Josh, met when Susan was 19 and Josh was 25. They had both gone to a singles event that was held by the LDS Mormon Church in Tacoma, Washington. Now, around this time, Josh didn't go to church regularly, but he hadn't completely abandoned the faith altogether. So you probably heard me talking about Utah earlier, so we'll get to Utah. But for now, they're in Washington. Specifically, they both, I think, lived in the Puyallup, Washington area. Or at least that's where like Chuck and Judy and then Steve, his father, live for, I think, pretty much all of their life. So they meet in Washington. When they started dating, Chuck and Judy, Susan's parents, weren't thrilled about it. The family knew Josh, and what little experiences they had with him were not great. For example,
Oh no.
Josh went over to Chuck and Judy's to talk to them about their daughter, Mary. So not Susan.
Okay.
This was prior to him meeting Susan. He wanted to talk to them about Mary, and specifically he wanted to talk to them about dating Mary. But the exact moment that he is at their house talking to them about this, Mary is at prom with another man.
What?
Yeah. He was so full of himself that he was like, I'm going to walk in, I'm going to tell him I want her, and like, I'm going to win her over, even though she's currently with somebody else. Chuck was not home at the time. It was just Judy. And Judy was very uncomfortable. And when Chuck gets home, he realizes what's going on, and he just looks right at Josh and he says, it's time to go. We're done. It's time to go.
Yeah.
Josh just looked at him blankly and kept on talking.
What?
Like, no
Social
awareness. None at all. Absolutely none. And so, needless to say, it was extremely awkward for both Chuck and Judy. And they were like, what the fuck? You'll hear this later on as we go and talk more about their marriage. But Josh was the type of person that knew everything. He was the smartest in the room, and he would correct you on everying. And when I say he was the smartest, he thought he was the smartest.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's a piece of shit, but yeah. Now, Mary, her sister, Susan's sister, also tried to warn Susan about Josh and told her that she just had this really bad feeling about him in her gut. But no matter what the family did or said or tried to encourage her to stay away, Susan chose to stay with Josh. And Judy, the mom, says that she thinks that Susan believed that she could change Josh. And in my opinion, I think Susan probably saw a lot of brokenness in Josh from the way he was raised. And she knew the way she was raised. And I think she probably was like, I can show you what a real family is supposed to be like. So maybe not necessarily like fixing him, but like
let me show
healing
you
him
that
in a
love
way.
can fill all the brokenness in you.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Gold in the cracks of, pottery.
Yeah. Now, because they're Mormon, it doesn't last long before they're married.
Yeah.
And
they gotta make babies.
This is fucking insane. At their wedding, Steve, Josh's father, said that Susan was no doctor or lawyer. I don't know why I say that. Susan was no doctor or lawyer. But she'll do. Said this in front of people. Specifically, Judy, her mom, heard this. Yes. And he meant that Susan wouldn't make the big bucks, but it was enough money that Josh wouldn't have to work.
Wait,
Yeah, you heard
that's
that
not
right.
a traditional. Okay, that's not a traditional Mormon thing to do.
But remember, Steve walked away from the faith.
That's true.
Steve is like a fucked up Steve's a fucked up man, dude. We'll get into Steve more later.
I mean, it's fine for the woman to be the breadwinner, but like,
to just expect it that like, also I don't say just a cosmetologist, but like,
women don't make that much money. Like, there's a wage gap.
Like he's trying to expect a cosmetologist to be the breadwinner and the baby maker, and like, I'm sorry, can we just hold
unless you have like a long-term
Yeah.
established business and like you have other people working for you and you have like a lot of pricing adjustment scale,
Yeah.
like it's going to be really difficult to make a huge amount of money off
And
of
remember, she's 19 at this point that they met,
gonna
so
say, she's just
maybe
starting out.
20. So like, she doesn't have a huge client base. Her skills are still developing.
it. She's still learning really how to cut hair,
Yeah.
you know?
I'm like, hold the fuck up, my dude. Shit. He also, at their wedding, straight up told Josh to his face that Susan would divorce him one day.
Really?
Yeah, straight up. I'm sorry if you guys can hear that. My phone keeps going off. I don't know who is. Leave me alone. Okay.
I'm in a meeting.
Yeah, right. I'm at work. Now, can we say a father of the fucking year? Anyway. No? Yeah, same. Now,
Yeah. Cue the crickets.
exactly. Now, during their early marriage days, the couple seemed to be very happy. And many people said this. Like, they seemed just completely in love, wonderful little couple. It was just
Well, it always is that
beautiful.
way.
But unfortunately, though, they did have some financial issues, which ended up making them live with Steve for a time. While Susan was working as a cosmetologist, Josh would always have some random-ass job. And it ain't bad to have a random job, but the fact was that it was hard for Josh to keep a fucking job because he was constantly burning bridges, remember? Because he's the smartest one in the room. He's very arrogant, very just like in your face, and nobody liked him.
Can you believe it?
Nobody, right? He also was the type of person to like chase the next best thing, right? Like, I'm gonna
I
be
bet he would
rich
fall
off
for
this.
an MLM.
Oh, he does. Oh my god. Yeah, but it wasn't him. He actually, it was Susan. He tried to get her to sell Mary Kay. Like, he was fine with her like selling Mary Kay and like bought a
Okay.
whole bunch of Mary Kay, but then she couldn't sell it. Like, it was
Yeah.
very common for them, for Josh to like jump into an endeavor and then
And
just
make
get
her
the
fully
family.
support it.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah.
get the family into a massive amount of debt. Like, at one point he tried to become a realtor. He bought all the like realtor magnets and pens and calendars, even took out like an $80,000 contract advertisement thing, and then decided that he was going to try to get out of it, but couldn't get out of it because it was a contract. And it was this whole thing, and they ended up having to file bankruptcy. Like, I mean, wow, he's really bad at all of it. Now, in 2003, the couple ended up moving from Washington to Utah. Apparently, around this time, Susan put her foot down and demanded that they move out of Steve's house. And not only move out of his house, but move far fucking away from him because he was sexually inappropriate with her.
Oh.
Yes. And she was growing more and more uncomfortable around him. Now, keep this in mind. It will come back up later.
It'll come back to haunt me.
It's
Great.
going to haunt you forever. Now, let's talk about their marriage. It was not sunshine and rainbows forever. When Susan claimed that Steve was inappropriate with her and demanded that they move out of the house, it caused some strain in between Josh and Steve's relationship. And in my opinion, it seems to me that it was kind of like the first thing that really caused some like bitterness on Josh's end and like a thorn in the side of their marriage. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Now, in their marriage, Susan was expected to be the woman of the house and do all the typical traditional wife roles and jobs while also bringing in the money.
I was going to say, you don't get wifey privileges when you don't let her be a wife.
Yeah.
When you make her both.
Yeah.
And don't, what is he doing then if he's not pulling any weight?
Oh, he's hiding in the basement on his computer where he spent the majority of his time.
Porn?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my guess. I don't know, but probably. Yeah. And he was like, not only, he's constantly with these endeavors, like business endeavors. So he's like working from home or like buying a whole bunch of shit, and like their basement and rooms are full of just like excess supplies that he wants to sell off, but he never does, and just makes him go in debt. He's
What in the my ex-husband is this?
absolutely Absolutely.
Waste all my money while I'm working at Supercuts for $7.25 an hour.
I'd be lying if I said that I didn't think of him while I was researching this case.
See? I mean, call it what it is.
Uh-huh. Now, Josh was also extremely controlling. Oh,
The person who spends all the money, yeah, I would definitely see that.
yeah. So he wanted to know where Susan would be at all times. He would listen in on her phone calls when she was talking to her family or friends. He had can't roll my eyes hard enough for that, full control over all of their finances, and would even complain when Susan would go buy groceries.
Sorry for feeding myself to stay alive to fund your habit of being a piece of shit.
Not good enough. I'm sorry. Don't spend my shit. Susan ended up gardening, but not as a hobby. It was out of necessity. There were many times that all of the food that her and the boys got were from the garden.
So she's gardening, she's working, she's taking care of the house, taking care of the kids, and
Yep.
probably catering to his needs.
Oh, but anytime they had a
Desires.
project, every time they had like a project around the house, he would start it. But do you think he finished it?
No.
No, the fuck he did not. Do you know who did finish it?
His wife.
Susan. But do you know who took the credit for it?
Him.
Josh. And he bragged about it to all his friends.
Oh, look at this nice thing I built for the vanity.
All the meanwhile, she's got like thorns and cuts and like she's out
just
there
like-
like rugged as hell.
She's worked to the bone.
Seriously.
She's not even an adult yet. Okay.
I am kind of like I'm summing up their marriage. Like
True, but like,
this is over a handful, like a good amount of years.
but I imagine, I mean, from 19 to 25,
Still,
you're still learning in your whole 20s. I'm still learning.
yeah,
Like, I don't quite feel like a full adult yet.
Yeah.
Some days.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. Susan's friends even said that when that there were many times that she would call and just ask for a packet of hot dogs because her boys were hungry.
what kind of man lets his family starve?
It gets worse. We'll get into that. It comes up in just a little bit. But as time went on, Susan became exhausted and started venting about her relationship to her friends and her sister. In one conversation, Susan told her sister that she thought Josh would kill her before he ever agreed to either go to counseling or to a divorce.
I remember those days.
You got your divorce and you got out. Praise Betty White.
Praise the cauldron.
Yes. I could tell story after story about Josh's controlling behavior, but I feel like this
You've
one
covered it.
and the next one, like I got to tell these two stories
Oh,
because I was like,
God.
what the hell?
Are they bad?
One day, that older lady, Giovanni, was over visiting, and this was actually the very first time she ever met Josh. And she had heard about his like controlling behavior, but this was the first time she saw it firsthand. And she
Okay.
was like, wow, they were not exaggerating. If anything, they undersold it. Because Susan was talking about how she had to make 4 pumpkin pies to take to a Thanksgiving get-together, like a big get-together with a whole bunch of people. And Josh was pissed that she had to make 4 fucking pumpkin pies. He said that they were a family of 4. They should only be required to bring 1, not 4. But yet they were going to go and indulge in all of the food and the festivities that everybody else was bringing. But yet he expects that they should only have to bring 1 pie.
Wow. He would
Yeah.
not fare well in a small community. Try.
Right. He also changed the password to their bank account so that Susan would not have access to buy food. He also created a spreadsheet where he would track the price of many items at many different stores. And then when Susan would go shopping and then would come home, he would check the receipts. And if he found an item on the receipt that she paid more for than what was listed in the spreadsheet, he would berate her. Because how dare her spend 2 cents more on a can of peas when Supermarket Sally down the street had it cheaper. Check the fucking spreadsheet, Susan.
Yeah, go 10 miles this way to save us 50 cents, and then go 30 miles to the other place. $5 coupon. Okay.
Yeah, there was one point, I didn't put it in my notes, but I'm going to tell it anyways. I don't care. There was one point where he tried to sell their car to where they were only down to one car. And then she's working and he's working at this point. This was earlier on. And when they were like, it's not feasible, he was like, she can just ride her bike to work, which was like 7 miles to her job.
She's a cosmetologist.
So then he was like, everybody kept telling him, like, it's not feasible, it's not feasible. And so he was like, I'm going to prove everyone wrong. He builds this bike and then he tries to do it. The little bitch didn't even last a week until he finally was like, okay, we can't do that. That's not going to work. I'm like, yeah, bitch. So at this point in their marriage, Josh had finally stepped away from the Mormon church pretty much for good and was barely going to service, if any. Now, this caused even more division amongst them. And when Sunday came around, it was time for church. But Josh would ask the boys, Braden and Charlie, as they were getting older, if they wanted to go to boring church with mommy, or if they wanted to stay home with and have fun with daddy.
That's so manipulative.
So manipulative. And so, again, this is causing even more division between him and Susan. Now, Josh also didn't hide his abusive behavior and would regularly berate Susan in public in front of people. So everybody knew about this. The couple did end up doing marriage counseling that was offered by their church, but unfortunately, it never seemed to help, and Josh only went one time with Susan. She began giving Josh deadlines to change, or she was leaving him. But when the deadline would get closer, she'd change it. At first, it was spring of 2008, then it was April of 2009, and then April of 2010, and so on. Now, due to her faith, Susan truly, deeply believed that if she just prayed hard enough, that things would get better. And so because of her faith, she stayed, and she stuck with it, and she fought for it when it was beating her in the face. Pretty much, she stayed because of her faith. But I will say, like, as she was like trying throughout her marriage and trying and going to counseling and all of this, her family, who are strong Mormons, and even her like bishops at the Mormon church had straight up told her, like, you've done everything, like, leave. Like, they were even telling her to leave.
Wow.
But just, it was so deep in her that, like, she truly did believe that if she just prayed a little harder, just pray a little harder, it would change. But it didn't. Unfortunately, it felt like the opposite was happening. And the harder she prayed, the worse the marriage became. And the worse Josh treated her, honestly. He began punishing her by refusing sex if she did anything that he didn't like. And when she was pregnant, he acted as if she repulsed him. She is pregnant with his child. What? When Susan went into labor with their first son, Charlie, Josh was too busy on his computer to drive Susan to the fucking hospital. She had to call her parents to take her to the hospital. Josh didn't show up for a few fucking hours. And guess what?
What?
When he showed up, guess what he brought with him? His computer.
What?
He sat on the little chair with his computer the whole time. And when Susan would be crying out and saying his name in pain because she's in fucking labor, he would just
needs her partner.
He would just look up from his computer and look at her and then just like go back to what he was doing. Chuck had to go over to him, grab him by his shirt, and drag him over to Susan and tell him, hold her hand while your son is being born. Chuck is the man. I just love him.
I know. That's hot. Anyway, sorry. But also,
I see Reese doing that. We went
Um,
Akatar. Sorry, guys.
I keep wanting to say words and they just don't come out of my mouth. I'm sorry.
It's like, is this real? Like, if this was in a movie script, you'd be like, too far. Too fucking far.
Isn't it like, shouldn't it be the
Mm-hmm.
greatest on?
It gets worse because after the baby was born, Josh decided that the baby only needed one meal a day. Mm-hmm. And because, quote, he wasn't going to eat his food so he could just poop it out.
That's what they literally have to do, though, if you can believe
That
it, as all humans
Is the
do.
entire essence of the human fucking body, you idiot. Yeah. The baby did get diagnosed with malnourishment shortly after. Oh, because
Can you imagine how many nights she had to stay up, days and nights, with that baby crying because it's starving?
oh, I can not only imagine, I know exactly what that's like, because Tawny, my middle child,
Oh, yeah.
she was tongue-tied. We didn't know it.
Yes.
And she had a tumor in her neck when she was born that developed at 3 weeks old. So nursing was very hard for her. I nursed Lily with no problems.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize there was a problem until we took her to, I went to like a breastfeeding consultant woman. She weighed Tawny, did these like math things, and was like, she's 5 pounds underweight right now. And this is when we found out she had a tongue tie, and we realized we thought she was just colicky. No, she was fucking starving. She was 3 months old. She was 3 months old. She'd been starving from almost day one. She would barely, like, her jaw would hurt from like sucking.
Mm-hmm.
And then
she'd get tired. She fatigued.
And she'd fall asleep and she wouldn't get enough milk. When we put her on formula, everybody was like, you know, just prepare like the first few bottles they're not going to like because it tastes very different from breast milk.
Oh, no. I bet she was.
That girl guzzled that bottle like it was fucking gold. She was just like, I was like, and so I'm feeding her and bawling hysterically because I'm like, I starved my child. To this day, if we talk about it, Tyler and I both tear up because we're like, we didn't know that we were doing that.
You didn't know.
And so I can't imagine to be the type of fucking person who you are consciously making that choice. I'm going to give you a goddamn bottle. 1 bottle a day, motherfucker. Drink it. That's all you get.
I agree with this.
Starve you, you little bitch. Now, to make things worse, back in 2005, just a few years after they moved, Josh started regularly talking to his father again. This caused major division amongst Susan and Josh because she was appalled that he would continue with regular communication with his father after he was sexually inappropriate with her. So,
yeah.
Josh told Steve during a visit that he wished he had ended the marriage before they had kids. And he went on to say that he wished someone would just come and tell him that she died in an accident. And that he longed to just get rid of her.
Okay, family annihilator. Alert. Error code.
You want to know one thing that Josh didn't skimp on? Oh, shit. Trigger warning. Family annihilation. I meant to put that up there.
Well, we were all
foreshadowing there, Lola.
Yeah.
I was like, you said that, and I went, fuck, I was supposed to put that in the trigger warning. Well,
I got it. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know, right? The one thing Josh didn't skimp on, life insurance. He got $5 million on each of them, and then got an additional policy for an additional $1 million.
That is so excessive.
That is
so excessive.
Very excessive. And this was back in like 2012.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, even before they had the policies before that. 2012 was when she went missing in 2011. Or was it 2010? Whatever. Anyways, Josh was also extremely obsessed with, you guessed it, how to get away with murder.
Nope.
Particularly on the cases where the murderer went wrong.
Pause. What is that a show or a book or what is that exactly?
No, just the concept of how to get away with murder.
I feel like there's a book called that. Anyway,
There's a TV show, but it came out way after this.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a
okay.
TV show.
Sorry.
But it's not like a true crime
Yeah.
documentary type
mhm.
show. It's like so yeah, he just loved the concept of, how to get away with murder, and he would obsess over cases where the murderer went wrong. And he would tell you and talk about it. Like, oh, they went wrong here and here.
Oh,
and
they
here.
should have done this. They
Yes.
should have done this.
Yeah. So for example, in July of 2004, a man in Utah reported that his wife had went missing. Eventually, the man ended up confessing to shooting her and dumping her body in a dumpster. Josh said that the man messed up because he told too many lies, and it was best to stick to the truth or as close to it so that, like, it's possible, like, as close to it as possible, so that you don't forget all the lies that you end up telling. Yeah.
He's learning dangerous skills.
Yeah. Josh even openly told people about how you could get away with the perfect murder and how Utah had a lot of mine shafts, which could easily make for a great place to dump a body. Yeah.
Who-
I think the closest...
I would ask who raised him, but I know.
Right? The closest I've ever come to, like, joking about murder is, like, saying, like, I'd help you hide the body. You know? Like, I'm your
As,
ride
like,
or die.
solidarity, sister.
Yeah. What the hell?
To be honest, we would both turn each other in if some.
I'd
if some
absolutely
shit
turn your ass
happened.
in. My
I
guilt.
love you. I'll visit you in jail, prison.
Yes,
whatever.
absolutely. I love you.
I'll
I
send you a
will
care
visit
package.
you, but I will also testify at your trial.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, not sorry. My
We
guilt,
got us.
my karma can't handle that shit.
Same.
Nope.
I can't even keep a secret about what your gift for Christmas will. I'm like, I'm sending it early.
Uh-huh.
I can't stay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I couldn't. There's no way.
But yeah, saying, oh, they went wrong here, they should have done this, like kind of backpedaling and plotting for them.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. Very weird. Now, we also find out that due to Susan's journal entries, that Josh had tried to go camping with her, just her and him. He tried to talk her into a camping trip. This was like just shortly before she went missing. But Josh wanted the boys to stay with his father, Steve. And Susan, she flat out refused. She said, no,
Of course.
but they can stay with Chuck and Judy, and then we can go camping. And then after that, Josh was like, forget about it. Susan went on in her journals, because she does end up journaling later in life because she just loved it. You know, it was like how it was cathartic for her. So she was a very religious journaler, in her life.
she's a writer too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She went on in these journals to talk about a time when she started feeling sick. It was so consistent, the sickness, that she started to believe that she might be pregnant and ended up taking a pregnancy test. The pregnancy test was negative, so she went to the doctor and had like a blood pregnancy test done. It also came up negative. Fortunately, though, or unfortunately, Susan was still sick. In her journal, she speculated that Josh was possibly poisoning her. Like, I'm sorry, he asking her to go on a camping trip and keeping the boys at his father's house? Absolutely. He is 100% trying to plot her murder.
When will the prayer be enough for you? Like, when will you see that, like, not to blame her. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, I don't blame her for staying, but
it
doesn't have to be like this.
But I think it's also the whole, like, she knows it's dangerous. She
You know what?
suspects he's poisoning her. And so now she has kids and she's afraid to leave.
No, something just occurred to me.
What?
I think she probably knew that she was going to die in that marriage.
So? It's funny you say that because...
Can I just, like, do my theory?
Yeah, because I have a few other things to say before I get to that part, but You go ahead.
I think that she knew she would die in the marriage because her hands were so tied financially with her kids. I mean, there was no way out.
Yeah.
Maybe suicide, but like there was no other way out for her.
Yeah.
If she was so bound by her faith too.
Yeah.
Because that's just an additional factor, but it's not the only factor.
Right.
Or even the major one. I mean, her kids take precedence over everything else. And then if she doesn't have finances to leave or like to, kind of hide from him, what can you do? So I think she knew she was going to die, and journaling was probably a way not only to get it out, but to like actually have it sitting somewhere so someone would know he's the one that did it. Like she solved her own,
honestly, like
before it
nail
happened.
on the fucking head.
Okay.
I think she, they say like it takes 7 times of leaving before you finally leave. She had tried, like she had threatened divorce. She had, given him chances. She had talked about counseling. They had tried counseling. She had tried up one side and down the other, and even more than I'm not going into in this episode.
I'm sure.
So she had tried over and over and over again. And I think I'm going to get to it. Like, I don't want to get ahead, but I'm going to get to it. But nail on the head, pretty much. So,
damn.
One day in November, the month before Susan went missing, she overheard Josh tell the boys that mommy was evil and the church was evil. This ended up turning into a massive fight between the two of them. Now, that is their marriage. I have gone through a lot of it. There's even more that I haven't even touched on because it would just take up literally 3 days. But remember, he told the cops that they had a beautiful marriage that was just some typical arguments here and there. I don't know about you, but this sounds absolutely nothing like a typical marriage. This sounds like an abusive, narcissistic, controlling asshole of a husband and a desperate wife that is wanting just the happy life that she so desired and dreamed of having that is not getting.
She wants her husband. She doesn't want whatever he is.
Yeah. So we know Susan journals, right? Days after she went missing, one of her friends called Chuck, her father, and told him about a secret diary that Susan kept in her desk at work. Chuck hoped that this diary would give them some kind of answers. And it did, in a way. This diary went on and on about how awful the marriage was between Josh and Susan. She detailed many instances where Josh was financially and emotionally abusive to her. So it didn't give them any like kind of concrete evidence or answers, but it at least gave them a very clear picture of how abusive the marriage had gotten and the things that Josh had done in their marriage to be abusive, like financially and emotionally and things like that.
Yeah.
So they also had searched Susan's purse that she had left at her house, and they had found a very small key. Through some investigation, they found that it belonged to a safety deposit box at a bank that was a block away from her office. They quickly went to the bank, believing that this safety deposit box would hold some kind of answers. When they opened it up, inside was a single piece of notebook paper. It said things like, "If I die, it may not be an accident. Even if it looks like one, take care of my boys." It went on to say, quote, "For mine and my children's safety, I feel the need to have a paper trail at work, which would not be accessible to my husband. It is an open fact that we have insurance policies over $1 million. If we die in the next 4 years, look at my husband." June 28th, 2008. She wrote this out a few years before she went missing.
She was resigned to her fate.
I think she was. But at the end, like right before she goes missing, her friend said that she had looked and like called and set appointments with divorce attorneys.
I mean, you could always change your mind.
So I think, in my opinion, she like this was her 7th time. Like she had resigned. Like we're leaving.
So she was so close.
But that's also the most dangerous time.
That's true.
And that's when shit happens, unfortunately.
Really, it's just, so, yeah, it is classified as the 7th time is the most dangerous time. It's really just the time that you actually are taking the steps to leave. Like, you have a solid plan in place.
Yes.
To leave. So it doesn't have to be the 7th. It could be the 12th. It could be the 2nd. It could be, whatever.
That's what I meant, was like, on average, statistically, it takes about 7 times of trying to leave before you actually leave. Yeah. And then, like,
when you're so, like, in your mind, bound and determined, this is the time, and I'm going to do it, and these are the steps forward. Yeah. That's when they see they've lost you. They've lost control. And so they're going to panic, and panic often leads to violence. Mm-hmm. So, exactly.
Yeah, I was just kind of being metaphorical of, like, this was her 7th time.
No, I understand what you're saying. Okay. Yes. Gotcha. Just wanted to give more context in case anyone hasn't been in a situation like this.
Yep. This letter, they said, acted as if it was like an informal will of sorts that Susan had put together. In it, she had stated that she wanted her parents to be the ones to take care of the boys, and told the cops who to talk to about what might have happened to her. It told them also to check her blogs online and even her work desk for her private journal. So she's, like, straight out in this letter, like, check here, 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 and here. Like, you will hear. Like, I have written all about.
She's got treasures everywhere for us.
Yes. Later analysis did confirm that the letter was, in fact, written by Susan herself. Now, let's talk about Josh's moves after Susan goes missing, because he was a little suspicious little fuck. So right after Susan goes missing, 48 hours exactly, Josh rents a car at 10:26 p.m. and ends up driving a total of 807 miles. He got a new phone and a new phone number and activated it hours away from his home and hundreds of miles away from where they had supposedly gone camping. Later investigations showed that Steve, Josh's father, called in sick for those 2 days. No one knew where he had been. And come to find out, Michael, his other brother, which is like his younger brother, had also went missing that same week, and allegedly nobody outside the family knew where Michael was. When Josh was questioned about where he went, he refused to answer. The police ended up searching his minivan again after this trip and found a bag full of burnt metal, which they stated was not there on December 7th when they searched the vehicle the first time. The town in Utah ended up holding a candlelight vigil for Susan. And Josh and the boys showed up about halfway through, but he wasn't there long before he abruptly decided to leave. Before he left, he told Debbie, the daycare owner, that the kids wouldn't be there anymore. She was kind of shocked at this, like, you still need to work, you need money, like, the kids need somebody.
Who's going to keep your kids? Yeah.
On the Monday following Susan's disappearance, Josh never showed up for his polygraph that he had scheduled and an additional interview. The next day, the cops showed up at Josh's house with a warrant for a DNA sample and drew his blood. So while Josh is being evasive as fuck, Chuck is out here and giving 40-plus interviews by the end of Susan's first week being a missing person. 40! Yeah.
Wow.
One of Josh's sisters, her name's Elaine, and his brother, Michael, ended up coming down and staying with him for a few weeks. While they were there, they covered for him and, like, helped sneak him and the boys out so they could go back to Washington and get away from, like, all the media. After that, Josh only came back to Utah one time in January and one time in February to get the house ready to rent. We also find out that Josh ended up canceling all of Susan's appointments within a week of her going missing, and even pulled out all of her money in her IRA account, which was around $10,000.
If I haven't said this, I don't like him.
Oh, it's gonna get worse. Okay. Yeah. We also find out on Monday, December 7th, okay, the day that Susan was found to be missing, Debbie, the daycare owner, went to the bank, and she's depositing all of her checks from all of her children that she watches. Now, how Susan and Josh paid was from their bank. They had their bank issue a check every week. It was like an automatic thing that the bank did. Now, when a bank issues a check, it's mailed out.
Yeah.
Debbie would always get their checks on Tuesdays. So meaning on that Monday, December 7th, she was depositing his check from the previous Tuesday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
So on December 8th, the day after Susan goes missing, Josh's check never arrives. She calls the bank to check on this and to figure out what happened because, like, she still should have been paid for the time that she had babysat.
Yeah.
They said Josh had put a stop to these payments. So in order for Debbie to not have gotten the check by December 8th, Josh would have had to have canceled the check on December 3rd.
Yeah.
Susan was missing on December 7th, meaning he had to have called by, like, I think it was like Wednesday or Thursday the week prior to cancel these payments.
What are you doing?
So,
premeditation?
Exactly. I literally have that in my notes. Premeditated, anyone? Like, yeah. Yep. So, I'm just saying, circumstantial. I'm building it.
How can that be circumstantial evidence? That feels like more, but okay.
It's not like
it's not direct evidence, I know.
Exactly.
Of like, I am making a plan to kill wife. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Now, after Josh finally goes to Washington, his brother, Michael and Elaine, end up making their way back to Washington from Utah. At the time, they were driving Michael's 1997 Ford Taurus, but it ended up breaking down in Baker City, Oregon. Michael didn't want to have the car repaired, even though it easily could have been. So he used Elaine's AAA to have it towed 96 miles north and ended up selling the car for only $100 to a shop that was supposed to sell the parts and then crush the vehicle. Yeah. Now let's talk about Steve.
Tell me about
Josh's
Steve.
father.
No, actually don't, but okay.
You're not going to want me to tell you about him, but I have to.
I'm very worried about what's about to happen.
He finally agreed to have an interview with the cops, but refused to go to the police station. So they ended up meeting at a public library and had a 2-hour interview where Steve had even brought his own tape recorder to document the entire thing, which they thought, that's weird. Cops said that the interview was one of the most disturbing and strange interviews they had ever conducted in their entire time on the police force. Why is that? Well, because in the interview, Steve made comments that he had a very special relationship and connection with Susan. He even went on to say that he had a sexual obsession with her. Shoot me in the face.
Right now. My God.
Oh, it gets worse. I'm so sorry.
This
gets
is
worse.
your
Not right now.
daughter-in-law.
It's gonna get worse a little bit later, and I'm sorry. I'm smiling because it's so fucking awkward.
Okay.
Yeah. So needless to say, the cops are like stunned and horrified.
Uh-huh.
I just like walk out like, what the fuck just happened?
I need to watch SpongeBob for 3 hours and eat cotton candy to feel better, you know?
Absolutely. Now, after Susan's disappearance, it did not take long for the cops to determine that foul play had most likely occurred. They were seeing all the red flags, okay? So on December 8th, just 2 days after she went missing, they filed paperwork and got approval that allowed them to keep the investigation a secret. This made all of their search warrants and their findings sealed from the public due to the possibility of it, like, impeding their investigation.
Yeah.
So to the public, Susan was a missing person.
Sure.
But behind closed doors, they're treating everything like a homicide. Like a homicide.
Good.
Now, something with this case that is just extremely crazy to me is that there's a lot of this case that's extremely crazy, but Josh ended up creating a website for Susan about her disappearance, like trying to bring attention to it. But many stated that it read more like a dating profile than anything else.
How? What?
I don't know. I don't really want to know. But also, Josh used horrible photos of Susan, like the ones that like your friend takes when you're like not paying attention. You know, she's like,
oh,
you know, that kind of stuff. And when family members and stuff had like questioned him about this, because there were other nice pictures that other family members were using with the media. It's like, why can't you use those? His reasoning was because Susan was imperfect.
That's so insulting.
I don't know how many times I have just like caught you off guard in this, not really caught you off guard, but like you just have no words for what comes out of my mouth.
Like I need to make a noise, but I don't have a word. I don't have a word. I just have a what?
What? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do what now? Why?
Now, Josh's site also included a ton of hate towards the Mormon church themselves and even the Cox family, because at this point, there was some tensions that
I was
were
going
rising.
to ask you, has the church tried to like, are they, I guess, helping the family or like supportive of...
Very supportive of Cox and of the Coxes.
Yeah.
So like Judy and oh, absolutely.
Because she was still a member, right?
Yes,
like she was still a part of that
And
community.
all of their friends who like very much so were still part of like the Mormon faith and everything, did really everything they could to try to help the investigation. They tried to keep lines of communication with Josh open in a way that they could try to get information, but everybody knew in the back of their head, everybody knew that he'd done it.
I know it in the front of mine.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right in the frontal lobe. Anyway.
So Jennifer Graves, his sister.
Yeah.
If you remember from the beginning of the story.
Uh-huh.
She's the one who ended up calling the cops and reporting the family missing.
Yes.
Now, she had become somewhat estranged from her family over the years and very much distanced herself from her father specifically and refused to let her children be around him.
I
Now,
don't
will
wonder
say,
why.
Right? Nothing was ever proved to show any kind of proof that Steve had been a pedophile towards his kids or towards his grandkids. But as the story goes on, I'm going to let you come to your own conclusions on that one. Now, Jennifer was desperate to help figure out what happened to Susan. Jennifer is the only real one in the entire Powell family.
Okay.
Like, Jennifer is the only normal one. I'm like, it's a miracle you're as normal as you are, Jennifer. Like, how did you become you after coming out of that family? Everybody else fucked up. Brothers, sisters, father,
dad?
all of them. All of them are fucked up, okay? And we'll get to all of them in a minute. But, like, she's the only real one here. She wants to figure out. So she goes to the cops and she's like, wire me up, bitch. I'm going to go see my dad and I'm going to ask questions.
Love this.
They never asked her to do this. She volunteered. So because she had been estranged from her family, just her going to see her father and Josh in Washington was a huge step for her. Like, she's making some sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she asks, at this visit, like, what did you do? She just starts in on Josh. Josh is refusing, like, I didn't do anything. And then Steve ends up getting mad and ends up kicking her out. So we don't get anything from there, but I have to talk about it because Jennifer's the only one that really, like, tried in this whole family. And I'm proud of her. Now, Josh did end up letting the Cox family visit with the boys from time to time. In one visit, the Cox's great-grandparents and an aunt went over to see the boys at Stephen's home. So not Judy and Chet.
Yeah.
But so the aunt noted that there was no kids' books around. So she found this, like, psychology book and she just started reading it to Charlie as he, like, crawled in her lap.
Mm-hmm.
And while she was flipping through the pages, they came across a picture of a woman, and Charlie ended up pointing to the woman's chest and said, "Mommy's owie." Yeah. There's a lot of those moments in this case. Yeah. After they left, they immediately went to the cops and reported what was said to them. The police did investigate it and ended up interviewing the boys. When they asked the boys about his mom, Charlie said it was, quote, the big secret. Yeah.
Oh, those kids. Somebody help them.
For some reason, Steve ended up allowing the cops to come in his home and did a second interview. When they walked in, they saw a ton of porn just out in the open for anyone to see.
You said this is in Steve's house?
Steve's house, which is where
Okay,
Braden and Charlie are living.
Oh, dear.
They're all living with Steve at this point. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
They even saw a cabinet that was described to them as the porn cabinet, which was full of magazines, toys, and just disgusting sexual items. Later on in the case, we find out that inside were things that Steve had stolen from Susan.
I was going to say, he stole her panties, didn't he?
Yeah, he stole her temple underwear From her
laundry.
What? Temple, like Mormons wear special temple underwear.
I didn't know this.
Yes, they do. Yeah, so he stole those from her. He stole her diaries and even had pictures of her in her underwear that were obviously taken without her knowledge. I hate this. He said that Susan was in love with him, but just kept it a secret from Josh.
Oh, yeah. Don't talk to your dad anymore and let's get far away from him because I'm in love with him.
Yeah. Now, as time goes on, like more and more is revealed with Steve's just obsession with Susan, and it's fucking weird. So we're not done. Unfortunately, it does come back. So sorry.
Great.
In Steve's home, he lives with all of his children minus Jennifer. So he lives with Josh, Elaine, and Michael, and one other son named Johnny. Johnny's 30 years old and has a history of mental troubles, like pretty extreme mental troubles. Now, in Johnny's room, he had a hangman's noose just hanging on his wall as like a decoration piece. He also had a picture of a woman with a knife protruding through her vagina and coming out of her stomach. And Johnny was also known to answer the door completely naked all the time.
Okay.
So he's completely naked. He has this stuff in his house. Steve has porn everywhere for even the kids to see. Like,
not a stable or healthy
what
or
the fuck is going on in this house? Yeah.
Wow.
Now, Josh did put the kids in a YMCA camp, and while there, Braden ended up drawing a picture of the family going on the infamous camping trip. Staff asked him who he drew, and he pointed out each stick figure and said that it was him, his brother, and his dad. He had also drawn his mom. But when he got to her stick figure, he said, "That's Mommy. She's in the trunk." If you are not watching on YouTube, Lola is shocked as hell right now.
I keep putting my hand over my mouth like it's going to change the situation and like we can unhear what we've heard. And I'm just, I'm growing more worried. I was already worried, but it's just...
Yeah. The staff did ask him questions and asked why she was in the trunk, and Braden began to like kind of stammer because he became a little confused. I don't know if he was really confused or just like
nervous,
wasn't sure what to say. Yeah,
all of the above.
He eventually said that they ended up getting to a spot when they went camping, and his mom and dad got out of the car, but only his daddy came back. Yep. Now, the Cox family. They decided that they were going to do a drive-by for Susan to draw awareness for her like missing persons case. So like it's like they're holding signs on the street corner and like waving at cars and like trying to bring attention to her missing persons case.
Yeah.
They chose to hold it out front of a store near Josh's side of Puyallup, Washington. Yes, they did this on purpose because they knew that most likely Josh would drive by and see it, and they wanted it to be in his fucking face. While they were standing there doing the drive-by, Steve ends up showing up with a camera saying that Chuck was in violation of some kind of restraining order, and shortly after that, Josh arrives. And both of them end up causing a big old fuss and yelling at Chuck and Judy and saying that they were the ones that needed to be investigated. And Steve then brings up the fact that he and Josh have many of Susan's diaries that show that she is a very unstable person. Okay? This is the moment Steve fucked up. After this whole ordeal, everybody goes home, and Josh's sister Elaine ends up sending out 700 pages of Susan's personal diaries to the Associated Press, to the media. A judge, after this happens, gets pissed and quickly bars the Powell family from publishing any more of Susan's writings. But when these were published, it pissed Judy and Chuck off, rightfully so. So they decided to sue the Powell family. Now, luckily, due to this lawsuit, the police were able to get a search warrant for Steve's home. And boy, did they find some disturbing ass shit.
Tell me everything.
I'll tell you everything, and you're going to hate it.
Okay, great.
The search warrant would uncover a trove of sick and depraved material owned by Steve. They recovered videos of 2 minors using the bathroom and taking a bath.
No.
During their investigation, they found that these girls were neighbors that lived down the street and were only 8 and 9 years old.
Oh my God, stop. No.
Mm-hmm. They confiscated a multitude of other hard drives and notebooks from Steve. Steve had more than a dozen computers in his home, along with stacks of homemade CDs. In these devices, he had tons of images, song after song, and diary entry after diary entry that were pages long, all about his obsession with Susan Cox Powell. He was beyond sexually obsessed with her. He wrote more than 2,330 pages about her and stated that falling in love with her was his worst nightmare and greatest pleasure.
Do not enter. Turn back now.
He also secretly videotaped her and then would masturbate to them every morning and every evening. Yeah.
Vile.
I'm going to throw up. He even had a picture of her inserting a fucking tampon. Yeah. Yeah. And I will warn you, if you go to YouTube, there are videos like of some of the, like he would record himself talking about Susan and how he was obsessed with her, like just some like vlogging and stuff that is out there, and it's beyond more, it's more disturbing than what you're thinking. So like just forewarning. Yeah. We also find out
on YouTube.
Yeah, like it's like people covering the case and like news people that have covered it, and so they're out there. He's ugly as hell too. He's a fucking ghoul.
I see him.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Huh? I know. And Susan's gorgeous. Jump scare. We find out that Susan was living with Steve, like when she was living with him. He tried to kiss her and confess his love to her. This was the moment that Susan put her foot down and said, "Get me the fuck out of here. Your dad's weird as hell." Yeah.
Rightly so.
After that, after they ended up moving away, Steve sent a package to Susan, and in it were a bunch of photos of Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson was like her favorite actor. And so she just thought he had like printed these off and like cut them out for her. But then as she was like going through them, snuck inside the middle of all of these were photos of Steve himself, butt-ass naked.
I don't rightly know how I'm supposed to respond to this.
You can't.
I feel nauseated, though. I'll tell you that.
I think honestly, through the entire time I read this book, I think my face was like this the whole time. Like,
I shouldn't have eaten before this. Anyway.
No, I know. Okay, so you remember Michael in that car that he wanted to get crushed and sold off for parts? Well, as the investigation continued, Michael became increasingly nervous about the car, and he's like, did they actually strip it and crush it? I don't know. So instead of actually like being a normal fucking person and just calling the company and asking some questions, Michael ended up doing way too much and calls a Boulder, Colorado imaging company to try to buy a high-definition satellite image over the body shop junkyard where he sold the car in order to see if the car was still there. Now, because all of the stars had aligned at this moment, when he called, there was actually a detective present at the facility and heard the call and found it extremely suspicious. So started doing some investigating and found his connection to Susan Powell's case. So he makes the appropriate calls and everything. And the investigator of Susan's case rushed over to Pendleton, Oregon, found that the car had not been stripped of its parts and disposed of. So they wrap the entire car in plastic and ship it back to Puyallup, Washington, where they investigate and like search the car.
That's it. That's the money.
You want to know what they found?
Blood.
A cadaver dog actually hit on the trunk of the car.
Mommy's in the trunk.
That a dead body had to have been in the car at some point.
Mommy's
Full stop. Period. End of story.
Kids don't lie. Anyway.
Now, after the discovery of the child sexual abuse material in Steve's home, he was arrested and charged with possession of CSAM and 14 counts of voyeurism. You'll hear it called child pornography. It's not pornography. We're being changed because it's not. Pornography is a voluntary thing. These kids did not volunteer for any of this. It's abuse material, child sexual abuse material, CSAM.
So okay, what is voyeurism necessarily?
Taking pictures or videos of people without their consent. So like in a sexual manner. So like taking pictures of these girls in their homes, like being a peeping Tom, or like the guys in the store that are like taking videos and pictures of girl skirts. That's voyeurism.
I thought voyeurism was something different.
Yeah, no, that's voyeurism. Like all these pictures he took of Susan, like in the bathroom, like putting a fucking tampon up her vagina. That's voyeurism. She did not consent to that. He's doing it for a sexual manner.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the time of Steve's arrest, the boys, Braden and Charlie, were also removed from the home and put into foster care. The boys didn't seem to mind leaving. They actually like ran out of the house excited to see the detectives and like were talking to them and just like loved these detectives.
Wow.
And the detectives loved them. And so the boys actually, the only thing they were worried about was the fact that they asked, like, they were concerned that whoever they were being taken to, they asked if they were Mormon. When the detectives told them no, the boys were like, oh, great. Okay. Everything's good. Wow. So Josh had like
them brainwashed.
demonized. Yeah, absolutely. Demonized
that,
all
like,
Mormons.
These are bad people.
Yeah.
Which is not always true. We do know a lot of them do bad things.
Exactly.
But being Mormon doesn't automatically make you a horrible person.
And honestly, like, the church, like, did not do anything wrong in this case. Like,
no. I mean, they supported the right side of the family.
Yeah, they did. And I do have problems with the belief of, like, just pray harder, you know? But
that was not good.
From what I know, like, even the church was like, girl,
they encouraged her to leave.
Out. So
they weren't, like, a proponent of, like, yes, stay with your abuser and you must never get divorced, whatever.
Yeah. So. Steve did plead not guilty at his hearing and was issued a $150,000 cash bond, but fortunately, he couldn't put it up, so he had to stay in jail. Oh, so sad. Feel so bad for you. But after further investigation into a lot of the material they took from Steve's home, they noticed that Steve religiously journaled. But after going through all his journals, they noted that the ones just a few months prior, during, and after Susan's disappearance, they're all missing. All of them were missing. And they also noticed that
he was still journaling, though.
Oh, absolutely.
He's obsessed.
And they noticed that all the journal entries after this were written in a way that the investigators thought Steve wanted them to be read. So, like, he was, like, expecting somebody to read them. He talked a lot about how he believed his son was innocent and believed that they would find Susan one day. Now, Michael, the brother, was in a doctoral program for a degree in cognitive science at this time, and investigators went to interview him again. During this interview was when they revealed that they had his car, and a cadaver dog had hit on the trunk of it. They quickly noted that Michael seemed nervous, but unfortunately he didn't confess to anything. Now, Charlie and Braden were taken out and put into foster care for just a very short time before they were transitioned over to living with Chuck and Judy. So Chuck and Judy get the boys.
We have one small win.
Yeah. This was a hard transition for the boys because Josh had, like, not only demonized the Mormon church,
but probably them too.
Demonized Chuck specifically. Like, Chuck and Judy both, but mainly Chuck. Like, so much so that the boys told Chuck one time, like, Chuck is evil. And he was like, but I'm Chuck. And the boys were like, then just change your name and everything will be fine. Like, that's what the boys thought, that just changing his name would fix it. Like, they're so innocent.
Yeah, they're so confused. They don't understand.
Confused. Yeah. Another aspect that was really hard for Chuck and Judy was that they noticed that the boys always wanted to sleep naked and found out that the boys slept naked at Josh and Steve's home and would sleep with their father.
No.
While also being naked. and found that to be highly inappropriate. And I absolutely 1000% agree. I slept naked with my husband, but the moment I had kids, the only time I slept even halfway naked was I'd sleep without a bra or a shirt because I would roll over and breastfeed. But the moment they got old enough, I wear a shirt. I wear underwear and a shirt. And my husband wears his boxers.
I'll
They don't
say
sleep naked because our kids still jump in bed with us. That's just awkward as fuck.
I used to always I loved sleeping with my parents. Like, I used to get really bad nightmares as a kid, and so I would always end up running in there. And Mom always got super warm, so she would she never wore pants to bed, but she wore panties and a t-shirt. That was what
That's me.
She always wore that without a doubt every time.
Yeah.
With one leg sticking out.
Yes. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I always call my mom is a naked mom, and I'm a naked mom in the sense of I get undressed and I walk to the bathroom, or my kids come in and talk to me while I'm showering. And it's just we're very open in that way, but I'm not walking around for hours naked or sleeping.
That's different than encouraging your kids to get naked while you're naked and get in bed together.
Yeah, that's just
very weird and awkward.
So weird. Now, tragically, the two departments that were investigating Susan's disappearance and most likely murder didn't adequately convey to the judges the length of the investigation and the discoveries they'd made. They had only told the judge that Josh was a person of interest in Susan's disappearance, but never said that they had found Susan's blood inside the home and that the cadaver dogs had hit on his brother's vehicle. So due to this knowledge being withheld, the CPS had no choice but to let Josh have visitation with his children. Chuck made it known that he was extremely worried about the boys in Josh's presence, and he was right to worry. They had found during their search of Steve's home computer-generated images of child porn on Josh's computer. Many of them were cartoons, and some of them were even hand-drawn, but a lot of them were incestuous. I know. But for some reason, even with this finding, the court still allowed him to have supervised visitation rights.
That is so disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a fucking disservice to everybody involved.
On January 31st, 2012, Josh had his last scheduled visit. He was certain that the next day in court at his hearing, he was going to get his kids back. That did not happen. The court ended up ordering further evaluation and wanted Josh to undergo a psychosexual evaluation with a Peter meter test. Do you know what a Peter meter test is?
I have a feeling that I know, but I have never heard this before.
I had never heard of this. And I was like, what the fuck is a Peter meter test?
Can you explain it to everyone?
It is a device that you stick on your Peter.
Yeah.
Your schlong.
Does it detect how aroused you get whenever you're exposed to certain
images?
Yeah. Okay.
So they show pictures of kids, and if you get arousal, they're like, you gross, Yeah.
Okay.
So they wanted him to undergo this, and they also wanted him to have a 2-hour extensive psychosexual evaluation and a lie detector test where he would be asked about Susan's disappearance and possible murder.
Okay.
Now, Terry, before this whole thing came out, that this was their decision, Terry, his mom, wrote a letter to the judge on behalf of Josh and said that the boys should be in his care. When Jennifer, like I said, Jennifer is the only true one in this family. When Jennifer found out about this, she was livid. Kicked her mom out of her house and went no contact. She was like, get the fuck out of here, bitch. How dare you side with him? You know he murdered her. We just haven't found all the pieces. You know he fucking did it.
Jennifer, you deserve $200,000.
Million.
Let that find you. The universe,
yes.
Let that happen for her.
Yes. Now, of course, after this whole judge ruling comes down, Josh is irate. I mean, it doesn't even begin to describe how mad he is. He didn't lose his 2 supervised visitations each week. He was just told that he couldn't get his kids back permanently until he underwent those evaluations.
Okay.
But Josh could not handle this, probably because it was a lose-lose situation for him. If he didn't agree to do the evaluation, he would lose custody of his children permanently. But if he did do this evaluation,
he'd
most
also
likely the results would either, 1, show that he was sexually aroused about children, immediately lose your custody, or 2, show that he's lying about his wife's disappearance and possible murder, and then boom, still not get his children back. So he knew in this moment he was being backed into a corner. Chuck and Judy also knew he was backed into a corner, and they were terrified. Now, on Saturday, just a few days later, on February 4th, 2012, Josh went shopping, and at 11:19 a.m., he went to the Bank of America and took out $7,000, leaving $4,000 in his bank. He also visited, goodness gracious, a storage unit and packed away some toys and books that belonged to the boys. He then took these belongings to Fred Meyer and dropped them off at the Goodwill Donation Center. He then went to a local recycling center where he dropped off even more belongings. Lastly, he purchased 2 5-gallon cans full of gasoline and took them home.
Nope.
Like I said, Chuck and Judy are terrified. They desperately didn't want Josh to have any more visitations until his evaluations had been completed. They knew in the depth of their heart that he had hurt their daughter, and now he was being backed into a corner, and they feared what he was capable of. They voiced these concerns to CPS, but they were told not to worry because Josh, quote, had been really good lately and that there would be a supervisor there.
He's going to kill his kids.
Chuck's only thought was Josh had been really good too, right before Susan went missing. On the night of February 4th, Susan's sister Denise came by and said she had a sudden urge to see the boys. She helped get them ready for bed and tucked them in for what she didn't know would be the last time.
I'm so sick of this shit.
Same.
No, duh. I can't. I'm not laughing. This is not funny. I
know.
Do not say that. I know. Don't say it. Don't say it. I just don't want it to go away.
I know.
I don't want him to go.
When Chuck got home that night, he went into the boys' newly finished room where they had just completed an extensive remodel for these boys. It was the second night these boys got to stay in this room. And he stood at the edge of the bed and watched the boys sleep and said he just wanted to soak them in. I really just want to hug Chuck. The next day, on February 5th, 2012, the boys were picked up by the supervisor and taken over to Josh's house. On the way over there, Braden said he didn't want to see his dad, and he was firm with his decision. But unfortunately, because of the court's rulings, they had to make him go. Braden just kept saying, "I don't want to see Daddy." The boys had been insistent in the past when it came to visiting their dad, but nothing like they were on the morning of February 5th. Unbeknownst to anybody else at the time, Josh had sent emails to his brother, his attorney, Tim, a neighbor who was a pastor, his cousin in Texas, and his boss. All the email said was, "I'm sorry. Goodbye." When the cousin read the email, they became scared and called 911, but unfortunately, the cousin didn't have Josh's current address. So the operator told him that the best thing to do was to call the phone company and try to get an address from them. At 11:57 a.m., the supervisor pulled into Josh's driveway. The boys jumped out of the car and ran to their father standing in the doorway. Tragically, though, the supervisor was a little ways behind the boys, and when they got to Josh, he looked directly at the supervisor, shrugged, and then shut the door in her face, and she heard him lock it. She then heard Josh say, quote, "Charlie, I have a big surprise for you." The supervisor then began banging on the door and begging Josh to let her in. Josh wouldn't, and she could hear Braden screaming in the background. She then went back to her car and called 911 at 12:08 p.m. An 18-year vet with 911 ended up answering the call, but unfortunately, you'd think it was the motherfucker's first goddamn day. I this fucking 911 call is on YouTube, and we'll link it below. You can listen to it. It is, I don't think I've ever been so fucking pissed off in a 911 call. The woman is clearly stating that she's a supervisor and she's there for a supervised visit, and states that the children had gone into the home. She was locked out by the father. Like, it is very fucking clear what she's saying. The guy takes a solid few minutes to keep asking her questions until he like fully understands what's going on. And the whole time I'm like wanting to scream into the phone, like, what the fuck do you not understand? But the moment that he actually finally gets what's going on, he's not even making it a priority. He's just like, okay, we'll get somebody out there. And she tells him, I can hear the boys screaming and I smell gas. She even says in this phone call that he's under investigation for the missing case of his wife. It's the worst 911 call you'll ever hear in your entire life, in my opinion. The call took a total of 7 minutes. 7 goddamn minutes. They hang up, and she's just waiting. And then at 12:16, the house exploded. Neighbors started coming out to see what was going on, and one of them approached the house to try to make entry, but the windows ended up exploding. The supervisor then calls 911 for a second time and explains everything again to a different 911 dispatcher. They get the fire department en route. After she hangs up the phone, this was the moment that the supervisor broke down bawling. Prior to the boys arriving at his house, Josh had made a call to Elaine and left her a voicemail saying goodbye and that he couldn't live anymore without his children. He had also emailed her directions and instructions on what to do with the money he had pulled out of the bank the day prior, and explained what bills he needed to get paid and how to turn off his utilities. Like, fucking priorities? Okay, you dipshit. At 12:20 p.m., she called 911 in a panic. At 1:45 p.m., firefighters finally were able to make entry into the home after extinguishing the flames. They found the dead bodies of Josh Powell, Charlie Powell, and Braden Powell. The same detectives. This is where I cry every time. The same detectives that had rescued the boys from Steve's home on the day that he was arrested were the same detectives that carried the boys' bodies out of the house. Chuck had left the house that day earlier than Judy in order to do some stuff at church. While he was there, he got a call from a friend that told him that Josh had blew up his home. Chuck instantly left the church and drove home in order to get Judy, but unfortunately she had already left for church. He then drove over to Josh's house, and as he drove up, he saw it consumed with flames. He asked what happened and explained who he was. Another detective came up, and Chuck said that the look on his face gave it away, and he instantly knew that the boys were gone. When Judy got to church, she was approached by a bishop who told her what happened. Her and her daughter rushed out of church and went straight home. After they arrived, Chuck came back and told them what had happened. 3 hours later, cops arrived to confirm that the boys had in fact died. The cops held back a little bit on the details, but had mentioned a hatchet and said that they had believed that Josh used it to knock the boys unconscious before he started the fire. Now, trigger warning, this is where it gets a little graphic. In reality, it was way more gruesome. Both boys were missing large portions of their skull, and both of them received gruesome blows with the hatchet to the back of their head. Charlie was only struck on the back of his head, while Braden was struck on his head and his neck. After an autopsy was performed, it was revealed that both boys ended up dying from smoke inhalation. This means that they were alive when the fire was set. After the boys had been struck with the hatchet, Josh took their bodies and laid them side by side on the mattress before dousing them with gasoline. The autopsy also revealed that some of the gas had even went down the boys' throats. Josh left no note and never confessed to the murder of Susan Powell. After their deaths, there was talk around town that Josh would be buried by his sons. the public refused to let that happen, and so Crime Stoppers did a fundraiser with a local radio station and raised enough money to buy the plots beside the boys so that Josh couldn't be buried by them. Chuck and Judy also prepared to file a restraining order to stop Josh from being buried anywhere near them. Chuck even called Terry, Josh's mom, and told her that if she buried Josh near the boys, they would move them, and she would never know where they were. Josh ended up being cremated, and I hope his ashes were put in a porta potty. Yeah. Steve never said anything about Susan's disappearance. Josh's father. The investigators ended up trying to make some kind of deal with him, but at the age of 62, he filed a motion and stated he wouldn't talk to police in fear of self-incrimination. So can we say guilty?
I was going to say, is that not the nail in the coffin? Like, is that not a silent confession? Like, again? The sixth one?
Yeah. During Steve's trial for the CSAM and voyeurism charges, the 8 and 9-year-old little girl's mom was a witness and told Steve that if he ever meets God, he should ask for his forgiveness and hope he can get it because she could never forgive him for what he had done. Steve was then, this is going to piss you all off, I'm just going to tell you right now. Steve was then convicted of all 14 counts of voyeurism and only got 30 months in jail.
Yeah, that tracks.
Now, of course, he has to be registered as a sex offender, but in reality, all of this is just a slap on the wrist, in my opinion.
Being registered as a sex offender honestly doesn't mean much anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, so
I wish it
the cops
did.
are going to investigate you first if something happens. All right. Like,
if you're watching the YouTube video, I am ugly. Crying,
I knew
snotty.
you were, and I could hold it together because I've cried 3 times over this.
Well,
already.
This is all, you knew what was coming.
I did know it was coming, and I've got all my tears out. I've held it together.
The court literally delivered those boys to their death.
To their death sentence.
And there's no way around it.
Yeah.
At all. And like, yes, Josh is 100% to blame. Steve is, that whole family is.
Oh, the whole family's a piece of shit.
But just know that the people that were supposed to protect those boys, that knew all that evidence stacked up against that entire family, willingly delivered them. And it was not on that caseworker or like caseworker, social worker, what are they called?
Supervisor.
Yeah.
She like took a long time off before going back, and then she never went back to supervising. Like, she still worked like part-time with cases, but she was never the same again and could never go back to supervising. Like,
That's
destroyed
understandable.
her.
Definitely not her fault. She did everything that she could.
It wasn't her who made these decisions. Like, she just has to bear the burden of the fucking trauma.
Yeah.
And like,
I bet she hears those boys screaming in her head.
Absolutely. How could you not? And the cops, like, I don't understand why. I understand they don't have a body and it's circumstantial. And I fucking get that it's harder to win a case on that.
He's dead. Can't we just rule it?
Yeah,
that he's the one that did it?
They just they closed the case. It's unsolved, but it's closed. They refused to investigate it anymore. They did search for her body a few more times after this, but they never found anything.
Let's back up. Who was it? Michael? Back him into a corner.
Oh,
somebody get him to confess.
I'd love to do that. But 1 year after the murder of Braden and Charlie,
he killed himself.
He committed suicide by jumping from a 7-story structure and landing on the sidewalk, where he died instantly.
Too quick.
Mm-hmm. He left no suicide note, and he had no will. At the time, he was in a legal battle with Chuck and Judy Cox for Susan's $2.5 million life insurance policy. Because, like, it's going to go from Susan to Josh, and now that Josh is dead, it goes to,
Yeah, I get that.
and they were like, I don't fucking want him to have any of this shit, which I
No.
don't blame him. So yeah, he ended up killing himself. Chuck and Judy also ended up filing a lawsuit against the Washington Department of Social Health and Welfare. The jury found the department negligent and awarded the Coxes $98.5 million. Due to different appeals, it was reduced, but then the Coxes appealed it again, and in 2023, the original award of $98.5 million was reinstated to the Cox family.
Thank you. We celebrate the little wins.
Yeah, you have to.
No matter how little.
But this family still does not have their loved one.
No, they lost the boys. They lost their daughter. They don't even know where she is. They could lay the boys to rest, but they can't put mom with them. As she should be.
Yeah.
I'm sure in the afterlife or wherever they are together. However, her remains should be there.
Yeah. In my opinion, I didn't say this in the case, but like Susan, when she was eating the night before she went missing, because like they were eating with Giovanni was over.
Yeah.
Giovanni said that after they ate was when Susan was getting very tired. So I think, in my opinion, she was sedated or drugged of some sort. He fully planned this out.
I mean,
this was not an accidental death.
Just like, based on if all we had was that check not going through. Yeah. That's the smoking gun to me.
Exactly. So it's unsolved, but everybody and their damn dog knows who fucking did it, Yeah. He was not going to confess to Susan's murder because he didn't want to give Chuck and Judy that satisfaction of getting closure. He hated Susan. He was repulsed by her. He was just a vile piece of shit. So he always wanted to have the last word. He wanted to be the best. And so if he couldn't have his kids, he was going to take them out. And that's why the book is called If I Can't Have You.
Yeah, I'll say this is probably one of the more like violent and like truly evil family annihilator cases that I've heard of before. Cause like, what's his name? Todd? I don't even remember.
Oh, yeah.
Tote, sorry. Tote.
Yeah.
With that case.
The toe guy.
That one was wasn't that violent necessarily.
Yeah.
Didn't
he stab him?
Yeah. I guess I'm just thinking of like getting mom away from them and like I don't know.
He like tortured them psychologically for a long time.
That's
and
true.
And forced them to keep the secret. Like those boys knew.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So he knew he wasn't getting his kids back because he's not going to pass the polygraph. He's not going to pass the Peter meter test. He has incestuous child cartoon porn. Like, no, absolutely fucking not. He's not going to pass any of this. And so if he doesn't get his kids back, his kids are going to end up spilling the beans on him. So I don't think it was like I can't live without my kids because he never came out of the house the entire time. When they got taken away, when Steve got arrested, he never came out of the house. So you can't tell me you love your kids and you did this because you couldn't live without them. No, you took them because they were going to spill your secret. You murdering sack of donkey shit.
I think that's even too nice.
It is. I like donkey shit. It actually like does something for the world.
Great fertilizer.
Yeah. He's just a fucking parasite. Have you ever seen this is like the worst thing I've ever thought of. Have you ever seen Handmaid's Tale?
No.
Okay, so
I'm scared of it.
I know I am too. We've only watched a few episodes and I'm like, God, I need like 4 days in between episodes because it's some heavy shit.
Yeah.
When somebody is like found guilty of a crime, I don't know if it's like specific crimes or whatever, but they bring all the handmaids down, and the handmaids like jump the person, like circle the guy or person and jump him and kill him, like beat him to death.
Wow.
I would love to do that to this guy. Like, he's already dead.
She said, that's one movement I can get behind.
Like, that's where, like, okay, maybe Idaho had it right. The firing squad is a good idea to bring back.
Well,
and that's why I couldn't be on a jury.
Yeah, I understand. Neither of us probably will be picked for jury.
I'm not kidding. If they, like, interviewed me for a crime against, like, children or as, like, sexual abuse, I'd be like, he's guilty. So,
Straight
like,
up.
You haven't even heard the trial. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Put him in a room alone with me.
This is a child. He's guilty. I will fry him in the electric chair. I can't. Okay, so sorry about that one, guys. But I think it's an important case to tell.
It's more than important. Yes.
And I think a lot of Susan's case, because it was like unsolved, I think it goes unnoticed. It was like unsolved but solved. I think a lot of it goes unnoticed and untalked about, and she's still missing.
And
she still needs to be found and brought home. So
you said you only covered on the main points too. Like there was a lot more to it, and so that can kind of like make people shy away from things that just have a lot of information.
Yeah.
I don't know. Especially with such disturbing details.
They sum up a lot of this case. And so I know this is like way over time, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to give her the due diligence. She deserves it. And she's still missing. I want her to come home.
I don't know. You know what?
I want her parents.
The marvels of science. Maybe one day something will happen.
She will be found one day. Like her bones will be unearthed.
Let's say it. Let's say it. It will happen. She will. She will go home. She will be returned to her parents and her babies.
Yes.
We're manifesting it. It's going to happen. Yes. Yeah. Can I tell you something good?
Yes. Let's take that hard right turn. Sorry, guys, for the change of tone. But
no, I'm not sorry about it.
We all need it. Yeah. Sorry, not sorry.
The Good News Network. A country of 2 million is the world leader in beekeeping and protecting pollinators.
A country of 2 million? What country is this?
Slovenia.
Slovenia. Look at you. Bees. I love bees.
Yes. So this small Eastern European country leads the EU in good pollinator policy, conducting research through the vast beekeeping network, creating legislation or best practices, and watching them spread from country to country like a bumblebee flitting between flowers. So cute.
I love bees. My neighbor wants to raise bees like at the back of their property, which would
that is such a task.
Kind of at the back of our property. And I was like, dude, I'm so for that. Like the three of them are like, there's like 3 of us neighbors. Like one of them doesn't do anything, but she's like offered her land. Cause I was like, I want a cow. And she's like, we can just put a whole bunch of land together and like have a cow. And Tyler's like, stop beating her.
She said, can I just get some milk every once in a while? You can use my land.
I know, right? I'm like, well, I don't want a big cow. I just want like a Highland cow for. He's like, what does it offer us? And I was like, love.
You can brush it and blow dry it.
And I can give her a spot.
It's a milky dog.
Exactly.
That's so funny.
My palate cleanser is I had a good day in class. Or I had a good moment in my microbiology class. We got to the end of the class and he was teaching us like different ways to like test microbes, right? Like how they do it. And like he was teaching us like one type of test that like dilutes the sample and how they go through the steps of diluting it. And then when the colonies grow in like the medium, you have to be able to like dilute it so much so that you can count the colonies, right?
Yeah.
Well, then you have to like do the math backwards to be able to like multiply it so
True.
that you
Yeah.
adequately know like the concentration of bacteria within the sample, right? And he's like, it's a really long math problem, and I, like, we'll get into it next class because we only have a couple minutes or whatever, but like, this is the process, right?
Yeah.
And I was looking at it, and it just clicked in my brain. I was like, okay, I see how they do it. And so I just like did the math really quick, and then the class is over, and I just like showed him my PowerPoint, and I was like, is this it? And he was like, whoa, how'd you do that fast? And I was like,
oh my God.
Sense. Like, I saw how they diluted it, and so then I just multiplied it by what they dilute, like what the in dilution would be.
Yeah.
And he's like, good job. Like, I'm impressed. And he's
Look
like,
at
have you
you.
taken statistics already? And I was like, yeah, I made an A. He's like, well, I'm impressed. And I was just like, oh my God, thank you.
Look at you. That's awesome. I love it. I'll use you for my math problems in the apocalypse.
Yeah, I will try. They offered me, like, they wanted to give me like a little stipend at the end of the semester if I did like tutoring for statistics 1 day a week for an hour. And I was like, nah, bitch, that shit went out of my brain so fast. Like A&P, I can tutor you on that. Like, I still retained all of that. But
yeah,
the math, I learned it because I had to.
Difficult.
But now it just like, I'd fail if I tried again.
I understand.
Okay, this is a really long episode.
Yes.
Sorry, not sorry.
With that,
I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yes.
Yeah.
With that, please stay safe, stay skeptical,
and steer clear of the cultish carousel.
Also, heathens, if you're enjoying the show so far, please remember to subscribe wherever you're listening to us on. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well. That's linked in the show notes. Right, Laci?
Yes.
Perfect.
Always.
All right. Thank you guys so much. This podcast is produced by Laci Bean and Lola Robbins, and it's audio engineered by Eric Howell. Thanks for listening.